Hi, in this video, I want to talk about how being realistic trumps being overconfident. So, I know I mentioned in a previous video about being optimistic for the future and how that's a really good thing. But if you're overconfident, if you're too optimistic, you're more likely to take risks and move in the direction where things can be potentially catastrophic. So, if you're realistic, being a realist basically means like, okay, I look at the facts, I look at, empirically, like what do I observe, and I make decisions based off of that. And so that's just a much more smarter way to move about the world because like for me, I was growing up, playing basketball all the time, and I'm 6'1" and I'm not particularly athletic at all. But I thought to myself, like, if I just work hard enough at basketball, if I just persist for as long as possible, eventually I will make the pros. Well, I was a kid. I wasn't looking at the stats of just how infinitesimally small it is to actually make the pros, especially given my genetics and my height and everything. I just thought if I do everything I can within my control, and trust me, I was from, being a high school athlete, just working out all the time, running at 5 a.m, being in the gym for 6 hours, lifting weights at night, doing all these different crazy things and still not getting that outcome. It's because I was overconfident. I just had this perception that I got this. And I was a very overconfident child and adolescent for the most part. But if I was more realistic, I would have reconsidered that and maybe put more time into applying to different colleges that were more competitive, or maybe just, mapping out like a career choice or a potential major that, just doing those realistic things. And it's not sexy. It's kind of a little bit more boring than being just like, oh, I'm going to take all my life savings and put it all on black at the roulette table. But you have to adopt that so you don't get into trouble, because I'm not saying that I wasted all that time. I learned so many valuable lessons from playing basketball. But I did sacrifice a lot of other things in terms of friendships and socializing and parties and other hobbies and interests because I devoted so much to just this solitary thing when the odds of me succeeding were so astronomically low. So that's the basic thing. Being realistic doesn't mean you have to be pessimistic or cynical, even if it may appear that way. Confidence is good, but if it's too much confidence, if it's overconfidence, if you feel like you're Superman amongst mere mortals, you're more likely to get in trouble. And so I've had different, experiences of that. I've been around different people who take those large risks because they think they're immune to just like the laws of the universe. But trust me, you're much better off being realistic about things than being overconfident. Doesn't mean you're not optimistic, doesn't mean you're not confident, doesn't mean you can't do everything in your power to achieve a certain goal, but just make sure that you're looking at all the facts from the outset and you're making the best, most logical decision in the present. It takes a little bit more effort, and it might not be as super cool as, making that crazy investment or, starting that business in something that you're completely you don't know much about, but at least you will save yourself a lot of loss. And again, there's this book by a behavioral economist who talks about that. People who are too overconfident, they take that much more risk and they have that much more financial difficulties moving forward. So you don't want to be in that position. So be realistic. And I know I hate kind of saying that because like the kid in me, the dreamer, wants to be like, no, always dream and always imagine. I'm not saying don't do that. Keep doing that. But sometimes it is very valuable to look at the laws of the universe, the real physical laws, like, okay, there's gravity, so I'm not going to, try and, fight against gravity. I'm going to respect it. And I'm going to respect all these other, statistics or what have you, these rules, so that I can move about in life in a constructive and productive way. Again, not my most favorite message that I might put out there, but as somebody who's made some bad financial decisions or has made some bad decisions in general, it generally stemmed from me being too overconfident at the outset while shirking looking at the actual facts of the matter. So be realistic, not too realistic, be optimistic for sure, but being realistic does trump being overconfident.